Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. Alright folks, here we are after market close on Thursday, September 23rd. I'm going to share my swing trade buys from the day. Now these trades today are all focused on biotech, biopharma plays that have catalysts coming up. Now I'm not going to go through and show you all of the catalysts because you can just Google them and look them up for yourselves. Some of them aren't coming out for several months, some might come a little bit sooner, but each of them was accompanied by a chart setup, and I will share the chart setup that accompanied the catalyst. So just know that some of these catalysts are sooner, some are later, and catalysts can be a real sort of shot in the dark. You don't know how it will perform based on the catalyst. You don't know if the catalyst will get pushed, which can be an automatic kind of dump on a stock if a date gets pushed. And you don't know if the stock is going to run up ahead of the catalyst based on that catalyst alone. That's why I like to couple it with these chart setups and go from there. So I'll share the setups from here. Now, give me just like 1 minute to mention one other thing. I love sharing these swing trade videos, and I hope that folks find them interesting or useful. But keep in mind, one, that since the market had its dip earlier in the week, I would consider what we've seen the last few days is the market being in easy money mode. So don't get too carried away with myself or anyone else seemingly picking out some real bangers the last few days. I think that is just a product of, yeah, putting in the work, but also I think that the market, like I said, has been a little bit in easy money mode. So just temper your excitement around any particular person who you're watching and the success of the calls that they're having at this period of time. Also, as it pertains to that, be very, I don't want anyone to just blindly follow myself or anyone. I think that's a really bad trap to fall into. I think you should be taking ideas and learning from them, developing your own style, figuring out what does and does not work for you, discarding what doesn't, and running with what does, and build your own style based on that. This way, if anyone ever disappears or someone goes on a cold streak or what have you, you will have your own tools and bag of tricks to fall back on. Or ideally, you just start leading with those, and then maybe you just, keep an eye on folks who you enjoy following just for ideas and things that you can look into on your own. But be very cautious of the blind following, because also the person who you're following, you don't know what their risk tolerance is, right? And they might have a very high risk tolerance, and maybe you don't. And maybe you're putting much more of your account into any given position than that person is. And that could really throw things out of whack for how you play a stock. So just a few words of caution there. So hopefully we all made it through those 3 minutes, but I think that those are worth reminding folks about periodically. All right, so blue, now this might look like an odd kind of setup, but let me just sort of show you what I'm looking at here. So on the trend line on the upside, so following this trend line to the upside, I'm looking at this sort of topping out that we saw here. I can't even really draw it very well, as you see, just because of the confinements of the app, of the web app here. But there's a few coming off of these targets, and when this topping out zone flips to a support zone, I saw this play out intraday today on several other positions. That can be a really powerful lift to a stock. So I know it looks like it's run up a lot, and it certainly could turn and come back down for sure. This could expose it to a lot of potential downfall. But I would keep a really tight eye, or what I'm planning to do is keeping a really tight eye in this spotlight. See how this sort of makes a spotlight? And just know that this is sort of the lower bound where I would expect to act as support if it needs it. Right now that's sitting right about 569, 570, somewhere around there. Maybe even a little bit lower because it's moving slightly upward as time goes on, right? And then looking for this to sort of have a test as it gets to this topping out point. Now, what I think I really need to do here is sort of align this better with those wicks. And then if and when the price gets up there, then my chart will adjust accordingly, and I'll be able to extend it up. But this will be obviously a pretty high price targets, but that would be the upper bound for what I'd be looking for if and when it gets there. And then the other thing that I noticed here was, if you look at all of this previous topping out, that had happened here and even a bit below there. So it's sort of an approximation for sure. But this 459, it blew right through there and didn't even really come down to test it. So to me, this looked like it was a bit of a runaway. It didn't leave a gap, but for all intents and purposes, I would treat this like a big gap up, and it looked like just sort of a runaway gap up to me. And so that's sort of the other factor that I'm looking at. And if it is truly a runaway, it could have more room to run. So I thought it was worth coming in and taking a position. And also, like I said, they completed enrollment for clinical trials. This was just 6 hours ago this was published. So if they're starting enrollment for clinical trials, that's a clear sort of nod to, hey, there's going to be something coming up down the line that they're running clinical trials for, right? There's going to be results that are coming out. So, but like I said, Google the stock and look at those forward-looking dates for yourself. APRE. Now this one is a bit of a wild one. Let me see if I can draw this out a little bit further so we can get a slightly better view on this. Okay, so first of all, there's this enormous gap down from about $25 here down to in the sixes. And right now we're sitting at 453. So it's considerably moved down even since that point in time. And so what I'm looking at here, we don't actually need that further candle. That's fine. Apologies for the screaming in the background if you can hear that. Small children challenges. So looking at this level here, and then obviously you see this recent jump up here. And if it continues to sort of confine itself into the zone, we've had a really good luck lately with these wedging out positions. Now, if it loses its hold here, what I would be looking for it to hold price strength wise is this 414 level minus 1 ATR. If you're not familiar with ATR, just look it up. I know that it's used a lot in Forex. Please don't write to me about this. I know that. That doesn't mean it doesn't work for stocks also. I get that it was developed for Forex. But anyway, 35 cents on the ATR. So basically what I would do if I was going to stop loss this out today is I'd say 414 minus 35 cents. And that would be where I would put my stop loss. ATR can help prevent you from getting stopped out too early on a position where you're setting just an exact zone versus an approximate zone, and that approximation comes from the ATR. It's not just sort of like a gut feeling or anything like that. So that's what I'm looking for. Let me just turn this red so I chart these out when I'm sort of taking the position, and then I delete them and then remake them when I do the video, hoping that that's additionally helpful for folks to see. YMTX, so this one has been in this downtrend, but it's sort of doing a very similar thing, right? And again, keep in mind, yes, we're going through the charts on these things, but like I said, all of these have upcoming catalysts as well. So we see all of these lining up really quite well. Several tops here, right? And then as of late, it's trying to jump up a bit here. Now it's a little bit risky because it's really just kind of forming this bottom. So you don't know if that's truly where the bottom is going to form. And so I'm going to give it some flexibility there. And looking for my risk level basically is well, this is not really accurate, sorry. It's at this 821. 821 area. So you see, I'm hoping that this double bottom assists with a run up. And just because you get a run up and then a pullback doesn't mean that it's not going to continue to run up, right? So I'm hoping that this trend line can maintain and that this double bottom really kicks something off. Now, if it comes down to triple bottoms, the interesting thing there will be, is the buying pressure still there? If so, then that might initiate the run up, and I would just sort of rejigger the lower trend line. If it falls one ATR below 821, then I would plan to take my stop loss there. This one has a lot of breathing room for now. The ATR will change over time, so it may not be this if and when it reaches $8.21. So you have to look at it in the moment. And I know the volume and the MACD aren't necessarily looking favorable at this period in time, but otherwise the setup looks like it's there. And to me, it's a little bit of a risky move because that's quite a drop down. It's about what, 20% or so, or a little bit more. But I'm just going to watch it very, very closely and see what happens. And I don't have to wait for 821 to jump out if it's looking like there's a larger problem that it's finding. Okay, so PTGX. You can go look at the news on this one for itself. The way that I understood the news was that there was a perceived major failure, right? But it looks like it's something that can be possibly corrected just by some reframing and reworking from the company itself. So my hope is that they can simply work with the governing body to correct those things, and then that the news of that being a non-issue would be quite a buoy to the stock, I think. I mean, that's speculation for sure. You don't quite know if folks will jump in and feel strongly about something like that, but that's my, you have to have some sort of, all stock plays are speculation to a certain degree, right? You're thinking that this play is in play for a reason. So a couple of things that I'm looking for here. One, I want it to get into this gap because it's an enormous gap. This is from $44 down to $20. So it's more than half, more than a 50% drop. So, and it's recovering quite well. And the buy volume seems to be there. The MACD looks horrendous, but that's what you would imagine. But I'm trying to pick this one up early just to kind of see what happens. Now, I'm going to be watching this trend line as my ideal stop loss. So I'm going to have to see what the ATR is if and when it breaks the trend line to then get a price target on it. But I'm not going to let it come all the way down to this 1280. That's not going to be my stop loss. That's far, far too much risk, though the reward here could be quite large. Now, I see a couple of things happening. Obviously, one, it could go against me and I'll get stopped out. Two, if it's able to get in this gap and start working through, it may additionally start working itself in this wedge. And if it does, that could really accelerate the jump out if it does actually end up forming that. And then thirdly, it could, like I said, have corrective news and that bring in a bunch of buying pressure, and it could just sort of run through this gap, irrespective of the wedging or the trend line or anything, just based on really good news and positive sentiment coming in from probably institutions and retail buyers at that point. So that's what I'm looking at. Like I said, keep in mind they're all biopharma, biotech plays. So look them up and see what catalysts they have. I think some of them aren't until December. So I'm giving them just some time and see how they do with the chart setup in the meantime. All right, folks, so I hope your trading day went well. Oh, one last thing. Sorry. I've continued to get notes that folks wish that I would do this as a live stream, not after the market close, and I want to do that as well. I mentioned this in a video before, but if folks didn't see that, I'm honestly usually pretty tech savvy. I think that I'm just super pressed for time, and so when something doesn't work, I don't have a lot of time to troubleshoot. So I was having a hard time getting my streaming software to play nicely with YouTube live stream. And so I'm looking for somebody on like Fiverr or Upstart or something to help me out. I've sent a couple messages, but haven't had a response. So I might just do a general post to see if they can just troubleshoot it with me, get me set up, and then I'll be good to go. So I'm just waiting for that to happen. If anyone here happens to be really skilled at setting up Mac, iOS, with YouTube live stream and the software that's required, like OBS or something like that. I don't care what software it is. I just have to get it to work. OBS is just the one that I've tried so far. Feel free to reach out to me in the comments or look at the About section, I think, on my YouTube channel has my email. You can email me there if you have those skills and would like to try to help out. Okay, that's all. Sidebar, but just want to let you know I have every intention to make these live streams as well. It's just this is the hiccup at the moment. I am going to close out the video now. I hope you had a good trading day, and I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.